Hello, and in today's video we are doing an FPL deadline stream for game week number 24. That's right, it's chip season. It's a really important time of the season, and we're going to look back at game week 23, how we got on, the transfers we made, were they successful, and we will look ahead to game week 24. The deadline at the time of filming is just over 2 hours, so make sure you get those transfer plans filled out, decided, and captaincy locked, bench sorted out, all that lovely stuff. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. Make sure you smash a like on it. Also, if you are watching this back after the deadline, then make sure you do give a little share or a reshare on Twitter or on Instagram or wherever you follow FPL community members. It would be much appreciated. The support on the channel recently has been really great, so if we can keep it up, that would be fantastic. So thank you very much for that. So yeah, we're going to get into our deadline stream now. We're going to start off by reviewing game week 23, and at the end of the video we'll quickly touch on what was a fantastic Form is Temporary podcast episode that released this Thursday with Sam from FPL Family, Sam Bonfield. She was brilliant. She was simply fabulous as a guest. A fantastic gesture from her to come on the podcast, because she's a very in-demand member of the community, and of course on the official FPL pod with Jules and Kelly, and so for her to find a kind of way to fit us into her diary was a massive honour. And it was a great episode. We really enjoyed it, had some great fun. Of course, always we love that quiz at the end, and there were some really interesting and good FPL tips in there. So you're watching this now, make sure that you, with 1 hour to go before the deadline when it comes out, that you actually do listen to that on Spotify. It's on Spotify, Form is Temporary podcast. Even put it on 2 times speed if you need to before deadline, because there are some really important tips there. So yeah, definitely one to remember, and we really enjoyed it. Game week 23, I rolled the transfer in game week 22 because I wasn't too sure I needed Haaland for that Burnley game. So I felt Alvarez, roll with him, captain him. That went really well against Burnley. And I didn't really have many other pressing issues to make. I didn't want to be in a situation where by game week 22, I'd have to bench one of like Gordon or sell Gross away to Luton. But in the end, I rolled, and so therefore I had 2 free transfers going into 23. Now, the situation with players like Gross, players like Gordon, was kind of the same for 23 as it was in 22. I didn't really want to take them out or bench them. I didn't want to bench Gordon against Luton, of course, so I kept him in. And I also thought that Pascal Gross could do well in the Palace game, because Palace from set pieces have struggled, and that exactly was the case. Set piece corner whipped in by Pascal, goal for Lewis Dunk, so a nice little assist there, and he got another assist as well for a nice 11-point haul. So look, at the end of the day, Pascal Gross, I was very happy with that because he boosted my rank big time. So in the end, my 2 free transfers in game week 23 were to keep Gross, but I instead did Alvarez to Haaland, because I felt that, Haaland, after he played some minutes against Burnley and Pep said that he was bound to start, ready to start the Brentford game, I just had to get him in, and I captained him. I kind of thought the effective ownership would be too high to risk against. Now, I did have it on Cole Palmer for most of the deadline, which is a bit frustrating because he got a decent enough return of 8 points, but it is what it is. I mean, I didn't really think about Watkins. Obviously, he got the 18 against Sheffield United. So, at least I got a return from Haaland. Obviously, only the 5 points is a bit disappointing. But, it is what it is. I think Haaland was just, for the long term, I wanted him. So, that's not a terrible transfer. And it's good to see that Alvarez blanked against Brentford. My other transfer this week was a, differential punt, because I needed some differentials. I want those differentials. And I had Gabriel. Then I had Saliba, Taylor, who had an injury, and I could start Trent and start Porro. And so I thought to myself, do I really want to start an Arsenal player at home to Liverpool? Not really. Or do I want to start an injured Taylor? Not really. So I felt that I want to bench both Gabriel and Saliba, and then get someone new in for Charlie Taylor. Now, of course, now we know that Charlie Taylor, after Vincent Kompany's comments, could be back for game week 26, which is when we'll want him for the blank. But of course, I've sold him, so that's unfortunate. But at the time of last week, he was, still in doubt. So I bring in someone who's, lowly owned, got a great fixture and a decent chance of a clean sheet. I went for a an Aston Villa defender against Sheffield United, and I thought, well, there's going to be a lot of blanks and doubles, rotation possibly, so let's just make sure we play this safe and get someone who's nailed for 90 minutes, no rotation issues, and will play and maybe just get the 6 points against Sheffield United. So I went for Ezri Konsa. And went for him ahead of people like Alex Moreno because I was aware Moreno had attacking threat, but they have got Luca Dean there. They've got a lot of fullbacks that they can choose from. And so what happened? It was Konsa getting injured on 58 minutes, getting subbed off. Villa get the clean sheet. And Alex Moreno, to top it off, scores a goal, 14-pointer, and I'm absolutely crying. So, terrible stuff really. The 1-pointer, but Villa did get the clean sheet, so it was the right decision, just the wrong outcome. And sometimes playing logically with players who think they're nailed for minutes doesn't actually end up working for you. So it can be a cruel game, this. But 74 points despite all of that. So 2 fairly underwhelming transfers, but still another green arrow, and that is now 6 green arrows in 6. That is a really nice run for us. If we look at our game week history, since game week 18, we've really done well. To be honest, the game week 9 wildcard was an absolute huge thing for me because I was around 2 million rank game week 8, so I've shot up since then, and to be honest, last 12 game weeks, it's been 10 green arrows in a row. Not in a row, but out of 12, it's 10 green arrows. So huge time for me at the moment, and we're up into 212k now. So look, I look at it and think that top 100k, that's where we want to get to. From where we were at the start of the season, that would be a really good achievement. If we can push on even from that as well, that would be even better. So very happy about that. Obviously, we got our great rank of top 18k last season. So I kind of think I do want to get close to that if possible, but with the way the season's gone, you have to kind of adjust your expectations, and maybe a top 100k finish in the end wouldn't be that bad. So then looking at game week 23 and the rest of how I scored those 74 points, Dubravka was very frustrating yet again. Owning this guy has been painful. I brought him in because I had goalkeeper issues a few weeks back with the likes of Sanchez being injured. But he's just not got points when I've needed him to. The only time he did was against Liverpool, and he was on my bench that week. Admittedly, Areola did get more in the Brighton game, which was quite nice, but still, he's just not got the points. And Newcastle's defence has imploded. Look, it was a great game against Luton. Luton played well, and Dubravka, conceding 4 is disappointing in a game. I thought there'd be a double clean sheet there for Newcastle. Nope. But on more positive front for Newcastle's defence, Kieran Trippier with a nice 9-pointer. Now, this is why I think Trippier is just very hard to sell, but he's also very hard to buy when there are cheaper players that are doing just as well, like Porro, like players like Doherty from Luton. So it's hard to spend as much money as there is in Kieran Trippier, but he does just show evidence of why he's valuable to own. And I don't know, it's a hard one with Newcastle defence because they're conceding every week, but then Trippier, he still gets the odd assist all there, and even if he doesn't keep clean sheets, he usually gets a lot of bonus points. Obviously, this game against Luton, it wasn't any bonus because there was 8 goals in the game. But that's why I think Trippier is very valuable. It's just whether when you wildcard, in the next few weeks, or for instance take transfers for the doubles and blanks in 25 and 26 and the double in 28, then is Trippier going to be part of that? Because financially we're going to have constraints. So tough one, definitely a tough one. Konsa we've talked about, that was really painful. Pedro Porro, now 1-pointer. The last few weeks Porro has been a bit frustrating to own, but he's still so attacking, and Spurs defence don't keep clean sheets anyway, so I'm not too fussed on the kind of Udogie versus Porro battle. I think Porro's still, on his day, probably more attacking than Udogie. It's just the last few weeks Udogie's picked up some attacking returns, but I think going forward Spurs obviously blank in 26, so he's definitely one that you could just bench in 26 and hold through that time because they'll play in game week 29 with that confirmed fixture of Fulham against Spurs. So I think it's worth just kind of being patient, but you could easily sell at the same time. There's no obligation to keep. In terms of the midfield then, this is what we got for game week 23. Pascal Gross was my absolute legend, 5.5% owned ahead of a game against Crystal Palace, and a huge differential haul for him, 11-pointer, 2 assists, and yeah, to be honest, I thought he would get 3 bonus. He did get 3 bonus, and in a game where there's 5 goals, that just shows, how much he's doing things in the game that affects the bonus points, so it's great to see that. Gordon, 4-pointer, yeah, really disappointing. Obviously got the assist. It was, a rebound assist, but we'll take that after he didn't get the one against Aston Villa. It felt a bit harsh. It was nice to get that luck a bit back. And Gordon did go off injured. It's not looking good. He's going to miss game week 24, but he could be back after that. So it's a bit of a dilemma for me personally, because I've got a midfield without Richarlison, without Foden, without Jota. These are all players I want to own, and so Gordon missing this week is an excuse to sell him, but he is also good long term, and that's the difficulty with Gordon. I could always bring him back when he's fit again, but then it's a bit of a hokey cokey, so I don't know. But yeah, Gordon, shame he missed game week 24 against Nottingham Forest, but at least he got a return, I suppose. It's just a shame to see him off injured. I'm glad I didn't captain him. I also thought about captaincy on Palmer, but he got the 8 points against Wolves. Now, Chelsea were terrible against Wolves, but Palmer's still the shining light. Even if Chelsea lose, he finds ways to get penalties or attacking returns. And so, yeah, he's also going to be blanking in 26, but to be honest, Palmer's just so strong as an asset. If you can keep him for the Palace game, then I would do. And then Man City, you could maybe sell. But yeah, it's not a problem if you want to bring him back after the blank in 26, because he's just such a consistent player. He probably will blank in 29 if Chelsea go on and beat Leeds in the FA Cup. But still, a very good asset to own, and a fairly cheap one at that. Saka, 9 points. Glad I played him. I wasn't ever thinking about benching. I saw a few people do that, but even against Liverpool, Saka at home is always a good shout, because the way Saka's been this season, he's not been explosive, but he's been consistent, and that is really good for someone who is priced at the fairly expensive price he is. He's just been consistent, and so I'm going to take that. Got the goal, Saka, and got the 9 pointers. So it's going to be hard to part ways, but you would imagine people will do in 25 with doublers like Jota and Foden more important than the likes of Bukayo Saka. But it's still a definite keep for game week 24, I think, because against West Ham, Saka could do some decent stuff. And then in the 3 up front, we've got Haaland, captain, against Brentford. Yeah, was a bit underwhelming. Didn't quite look his usual self, but I think he'll be back ready to his normal self against Everton on the 12:30 kickoff today. I think, Haaland, he has been obviously out for a long time, so that is going to impact him, but he's still the best striker in the league. He's still the best FPL option this season. Let's just have faith that against Everton it will go well. But, I think he is a lot of money. I think if you don't have him now, you've just got to find a way to get him, because he's just so dangerous. Now, Watkins, 18-pointer, that was lovely. After his goal against Newcastle, he followed it up with a nice return against Sheffield United. And I don't think he's sellable either. I know that obviously players like Darwin Núñez have got the double in 25. You've got Tony the same. But I just think Watkins, he's just the second, I think the second best forward in the league, the highest scoring forward in FPL. And I just don't see a reason to sell him, because Man United this week is not a bad fixture. Then he's got Fulham, which is a nice game. Obviously then you think, oh, well, he's not doubling, but he still has good fixtures. So I just don't want to sell him, to be honest. And he doesn't blank in 26 either. So it's just worth, I'd probably say, keeping him and just why not change what's already decent. And that front 3 is that. Solanke, he is now going to have a double in 28. So he's much more valuable, I think, than he was before. But I've also seen people selling him. Now, this week, great fixture, Fulham away. Why would you sell, So I think you just got to be patient with these strikers. As much as Darwin and Tony are tempting, you could go for even someone like an Adebayo at Luton with his double. But I just think these 3, the tried and tested 3, even the doubles coming up, that these players are going to start games. And there's, potentially Luton, they might not score as many as someone like Bournemouth or Villa. You've got, for Darwin, would he get 180 minutes in the double? We just don't know. So these players are just a bit more certain, and that's why I'm favouring keeping them. But shame about Solanke blank against Forest. If you captained him, that was pretty painful. And then the bench, we had Arrow on the bench. He ended up getting 1, so at least, he didn't get more than Dubravka. We had Gabriel on the bench, so glad I ended up bringing in Konza, even if it was a 1-pointer. He, did end up getting more than Gabriel, and I was going to start Gabriel over Saliba if I'd have not replaced Taylor, so that's at least a positive. Saliba also got 1 point, and then Hwang Hee-chan didn't actually play. So, going into Game Week 24, this is our team for the next deadline. Game Week 24 then, 11 o'clock deadline, get those teams locked in, people. So in goal, we've got, yet again, Martin Dubravka. Now, you'll see there, a Luton shirt. I don't want to do it. As a Watford fan, I don't want to do it, but sometimes you just got to, understand that FPL, you've got to change with the times and realise when a good asset is there. But who will it be from Luton? That's the question. Dubravka, Forest away, good fixture for Newcastle, because I know that Forest recently have done quite well under Nuno Espirito Santo, but I think with Chris Wood confirmed out injured for Nottingham Forest, Awani didn't look too lively in the Bournemouth game, and I think Newcastle, alright, they didn't look good against Luton, but I think Luton just turned up really well on the day, and I'd expect Newcastle to win this game at the City Ground fairly comfortably, so even though they've got the home advantage, I think Newcastle could get a clean sheet in that one, and surely Dubravka's got to do something for me. Trippier, this week, good option, obviously nice 9-pointer last week. A few people don't have him, which I guess is kind of understandable with the price, but he's just very consistent with attack and return. So hopefully another one here on set pieces. We know how Forest haven't been great from defending those, so I think it could be a nice route to points for Trippier. Then Doughty, he is in. Doughty is in, and it's part of the -4. I never thought at the start of the season I would be bringing in a Luton defender for a -4, especially with my Watford connections, but you've just got to understand that Doughty is a ridiculous FPL asset at the moment because he's 4.5 million. He might have gone up to 4.6, I think, but he's got a double in Game Week 25, albeit not the easiest against Manchester United and Liverpool, but even if he just gets, 2 starts, that's 4 points, then it's a -4. You've got the Sheffield United game this week, and you've already gone over breaking even. So, yeah, Doughty obviously then will also double in 28, so you can just hold him through that time. He does blank in 26, so you've got to have an option if you're not free hitting in 26 to bench him. But yeah, it just looks a really good asset, and I've just got to say fair play. This week, Sheffield United, good chance for a clean sheet. You'd hope so, and then some attack and returns alongside would be lovely. Pedro Porro against Brighton. I expect Spurs to concede in that game, even with João Pedro out injured. I think Brighton have scored a lot of goals this season. Spurs haven't kept a lot of clean sheets, but you own their Pedro Porro for his attacking threat. So hopefully something can come for the wing-back in this fixture. Then we've got midfield, Bukayo Saka against West Ham. I don't feel a need to take him out because against West Ham, I think Saka could do well. Arsenal obviously looked really good against Crystal Palace, and then they followed that up with a win against Forest. So Saka's in form at the moment. Assist against Crystal Palace, another goal against Forest, and another goal against Liverpool. So there's just no reason for me to take Saka out until I bring in those players for the double. So, for instance, City players. If I want to favour 2 fixtures over Saka's 1 against Burnley in 25, then that's more of a reasonable shout. So I think he's got to stay in for me this week. Parma Palace away, good fixture. I think Parma is just so consistent, as we've said, even despite Chelsea's form. And they did win against Villa in the midweek game in the FA Cup, so maybe they can fancy themselves against the Palace side, who are really struggling with Elise and Eze's injuries and their defensive injuries to Mark Gay as well. I think Palmer could be a really decent captain shout. Obviously, he's got the Monday night kickoff, but I think you probably just look towards the City and Liverpool players first for captaincy. But yeah, not a bad shout. Palmer's staying in for me until at least probably the Man City game because Palace is a good fixture. Now, Jota does blank in 26. I did factor that in to my planning because I could have gone for Foden, who doesn't blank in 26. But I think the way that Liverpool are playing at the moment, and their blip against Arsenal was a bit uncharacteristic, but generally they have been so good at Anfield. And Burnley are a side that not keeping clean sheets, and they struggled. So I think they're Liverpool that can get a few points there, and I think Jota's the main man for it, because with Salah still a doubt whether he'll be back for one or both of the games in Game Week 25, the double, I just don't think that it's worth going for Salah. Even on a wild card, you just don't know if he'll be back. So Jota's going to start, I think, at least for the next 3 or 4 games. And even when Salah's back, Jota's been in such good form, he should be starting anyway. So yeah, Jota's just one that I think it has to come in. So I've sold for Jota Anthony Gordon, which I don't love because I've loved him this season in my team since that Game Week 9 wildcard. He's been an ever-present, and he's just got me a lot of points. But I think with the fact he misses the game this week, then it's Bournemouth, okay fixture. But then after that, it's a couple of tough fixtures for Newcastle. I think that's a decent excuse to get rid of Gordon. I can always bring him back for after the blank in 26. That's also an option, because I'm not sure if Gordon will necessarily be back for Bournemouth. We'll have to see, but we'll wait and see with that. I think Jota just will get points over the next few weeks with extra games as well, so it will justify that. And then Hwang, he's back in my team. Yes, I have held him this whole time, even though he's been at Asian Cup. But he's back for Brentford because we know what happened in the reverse fixture, a massive haul, 14-pointer. But no, I think Hwang coming back, I expect him to start. I expect him to play the majority of minutes. So even if he gets, for instance, subbed off early, with him coming back from the Asian Cup, he's match fit because he's been playing for South Korea. So I think that's fine. I think Brentford, the way that they, did keep City out for a bit of that Man City game, but I still think, with Wolves being at home, you'd fancy them to score a few here, and Hwang is the main man. So, yeah, my nice little differential, Hwang Hee-chan. I think he's about 3% owned, so if he can go off this week, then that's some nice rank rises. We've also got Alfie Doughty at less than 10%, so a few differentials sprinkled in. Lovely stuff. And then we've got Haaland on the captaincy. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer because, yes, Jota is tempting against Burnley, but I think if Haaland goes big, which we know he can, then it'll be painful. If that's the early game, you can look at it and think, if it goes wrong, that hurts your week. But equally, flip it and say, if it goes badly, not captaining him, then you've got to live with that for the whole weekend. And I'm just not willing to do that. I think Burnley defensively have had their issues, but so have Everton, right? No, their defence has improved, Everton, but Haaland in home games is just outrageous. We know how good he can be. And now that he's going to probably start, I think he's just got to be the best option. For the double, you could look at Jota, but I think even then, a lot of people are going to captain Haaland or triple captain him. So it's just worth going with Erling. Then we got Watkins against Man United. As I said, good fixture. Happy with that. He obviously, can return against these big sides. We've seen it before with Watkins. And then Solanke's got Fulham. Great fixture. Solanke's actually got a good record against Fulham. So feeling quite good about that. Got a nice team this week. -4 taken. Doughty in for Mr. Konza and Jota in for Anthony Gordon. So to be fair, I know that I'm going to get the points this week in terms of the kind of net swing because I've taken out 2 players I know aren't playing in Game Week 24. So that's good logic to do those moves. And then we've got Gross on the bench, which I do regret a little bit because now that Pedro's out, Gross will probably be on penalties, but I think with Porro in my team, I can justify benching Gross. I think, he's hauled last week, but he's not going to haul every week, and so this is the nice week to bench him. Then Gabriel's got West Ham. I think West Ham score in this game, to be honest. I think Arsenal, defensively, they've been up and down, but they have been one of the stronger defences. But away from home, you'd fancy West Ham to get a few. I know that they didn't look great against Man United, but I think they will come back. It's always against Arsenal that West Ham seems to turn up, so I'm fancying that. I think they will concede, and therefore Gabriel and Saliba there on the bench with Areola on the bench as well. So that is our Game Week 24 team locked in and captaincy as well. Just quickly, we'll show you what my plan is for the upcoming weeks, and then we'll show you the form is temporary episode and the mini league for FPL Yellow Army. So what's my plan going forward then? As I said, 2 free transfers are going to be kind of not possible this week because I had just got the 1 free. So Konza is coming out, and as we said, Alfie Doughty is coming in. Then we've got Gordon coming out, and then we've got Mr. Jota, the Slotter, as we like to call him. He's come in. So then captaincy on Haaland, vice on Jota, lovely jubbly. Then going into game week number 25, we've got 1.7 in the bank. So with that 1.7, the plan is that we will, in game week 25, when it's the double for Luton, it's a double for Liverpool, it's a double for Brentford and Manchester City. I'm not interested in Brentford. I don't think Tony's worth taking out one of these good forwards like Watkins or Solanke, especially when Solanke's got his double soon and Watkins is just so consistent. Because Tony's got a tough double, so I don't think it's worth it. Even though he doesn't blank, I think, neither does Watkins or Solanke. So, yeah, I think he could do more in less games, Watkins and Solanke, than Tony. But my plan for Game Week 25 is to take another -4, just because it's 2 games, more upside. And therefore, I'd be doing Luis Diaz in for Mr. Cole Palmer, because Liverpool have got their double. And I can, wait a week this week, see how Diaz does. If he gets injured, for instance, then I won't do that and I'll just do someone else. But, yeah, that could be my approach. And I also want to do Phil Foden. I think having 5 doublers is not ideal, it's not optimal, because I thought about wildcarding to get kind of more doublers, but I don't think you need to necessarily. Wildcarding in 30 makes more sense to me, because then you can dead end in 20 to 29, or even free hit in 29, and then wildcard out of that in number 30 game week, because then you've got the final 8 games, the final straight, the run-in looks more kind of, more information, and by even 26 we'll know who blanks, after 26 in blanking in 29. So I think wildcarding now, you just don't have enough info. But yeah, it's not the worst strat. Then we've got we're going to be starting Gabriel against Burnley. I think Wolves probably can score in that game, so I bench Porro. Probably bench Hwang for Gross against Sheffield United. And I guess we have to bench Saliba against Burnley as well, because realistically we have to start Trippier because of how attacking he is. He can, explode in any game, whereas Saliba has not quite got that same level of attacking threat, so I think it's worth benching him. Then we've got captaincy on Haaland. It's most likely going to be triple captaincy for Erling Haaland, I think, because, to be honest, he is just an absolute joke, and he's got 2 home games where Haaland, often does do well in the home games, so that's what I'll probably be doing. Then we've got those 2 transfers then, so we've done Foden in for Saka, and Diaz in for whoever the other one was. I've forgotten now. Oh yeah, of course it was Palmer. So that's the transfers, that's the team probably for game 25. And then my idea for 26 is that, because of the fact that I've sold Konza rather than selling Saliba, because that was in my mind, sell Saliba or sell Konza for Doughty in 24. Now, if I sell Saliba, that leaves me with no bench, basically. Or at least, yeah, I think it does. Or at least, I have to make a transfer, basically, an additional one, a -4 to get 11 playing players. Now, that would be the situation if I'd have had Konza still, obviously, because he's not going to be back by 26. So therefore, I don't have to take a hit in 26 if I then sell Konza this week rather than Saliba. So therefore, I can bring in Saliba for game week 26 for Doughty. And then obviously I can bring in Hwang for Luis Diaz. And then the plan is to probably actually keep Jota after Luis Diaz, because I just rate him over Diaz as a long-term option. So then that means I've only got 1 transfer that I need to make a full 11 for game week 26. Probably will be Luis Diaz, who will go, and I'll probably bring in Pedro Neto ahead of a game against Sheffield United. So those are our kind of plans. We've got enough money in the bank as well to do it for the long term. A decent shout. Luis Diaz will save me a bit of money as well by selling him. So yeah, just makes a lot of sense, those transfers and that plan, because I did have a plan to take -4s in all of game weeks 24 to 26, but I think having that free transfer in 26, don't want to take minuses in a blank ideally. So this is the FPL Yellow Army's Loyal Legion standings. At the top we've got Wit FPL still smashing it. Well done to you, mate. Really, really good stuff. We've also got there Josh Brackstone is up there, Caleb, Micah, Jared Phelan, Sakib, Ellie Pullen, no FPLs in 8th spot, and we've got Adam and Miles in the top 10. So yeah, keep on going. Of course, January Manager of the Month was, of course, Mr. Kieran Rimmer, only by virtue of scoring more points in the game week, the game week score of game week 22. So yeah, it was a crazy one, really. Tight stuff. even though Kieran captained Haaland against Burnley for 1 point or 2 points, he's ended up getting more in Game Week 22, 55 points. So well done, Kieran Rimmer. I think he actually wildcarded in Game Week 22, if I'm right in thinking. Was it? Oh no, 21 possibly. Yeah, it was. 107 points. Lovely stuff. Jota captain against Bournemouth. That was really nice. He had Darwin as well. Tony for the goal against Forest as well. So look, some great stuff there. Ranked at 215k. It's decent, mate. Decent from Kieran. He had Jota for the game, and then Eze as well. So yeah, some nice game weeks from you there, Kieran. 67 points last week. Foden for the hat-trick, so fair play to you. But it is interesting. So yeah, ranked 215k. Not quite 212k like me, but you know, still pretty good. But no, going back to that mini league, do make sure you check out how it's getting on, and make sure you check out the Former Temporary episode before that deadline of 11 o'clock this morning. It was a really good one with Sam Bonfield, and yeah, hope you have enjoyed this video. Make sure you smash a like on it, comment your transfers you're making in Game Week 24, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye everyone.